company called UpTech Studio, and we're a software development and consulting company. So we work with a bunch of startups, small businesses, and help them build their applications. So I'm one of the developers there. I run our projects and teams. I'm usually interfacing with our clients and helping them figure out what they're wanting to build and describing and hopefully helping them build what they actually want to build. I've been married for a while now, and I have a dog named Klaus, who is wonderful and cute. Oh my gosh. He has clothes. It's wonderful. Samantha is completely right. Like, as a developer, the systems that she's presenting to all of you is very helpful to us as developers. There's, I really like knowing what I need to do. I really like knowing what is asked of me. And by looking at these design systems that, just like Samantha shared, a lot of the guesswork's kind of removed from projects. That being said, I think that there is kind of more than one way to design an app, and that's what Samantha shared. And so what I'm hoping to do is share a little bit more about, from a developer's perspective, some tips and tricks that I like, that my company likes, people I've worked with like, that help us when you're working with Figma, have developers, I don't know, be successful and have you be successful as well. So some things may or may not go a little bit counter to what Samantha said, but that's okay. I think both of these things can live in tandem, and it's really just about where you are, what you're doing, what company you're working with, and how that influences what you want to do with your designs. Now, I think with all of this, I think it's really good for you to understand where I'm coming from, a little bit my background and how I think about things when it comes to building applications. So I've worked mostly with smaller startups. So when Samantha was showing that screen with one side was the big companies, one side's the small companies. On the small company side, I've got to go fast. I got to get things out there, and spending a lot of time building out nuances of border radiuses is not something that gives me a lot of joy. And I find a little frustrating at times if we're arguing over 3 or 6 or 4. What are we doing? It's crazy. But when I'm thinking about the startup, you want to look at, I love, and I will be talking about, and I'll be saying this without even thinking about it, I'll be talking about the relationships that product development and design have with one another. And if you're not familiar with this, product is usually the ones that are, let's see, I wrote down, identify solutions to problems that the business wants to solve through software. Design is solving the visual and user experience challenges that the solution introduces, that product is presenting, and development implements the software so that it meets the business needs and their goals. Now, all these things are working together, and they're also tugging at one another. Design's going to put something for development to do, and we're going to have to make decisions from product's perspective to support what they want to do. And we might push back on those designs because we see, hey, that's not going to help the business move forward. There's going to be conversations with design and product. You'll want to make something beautiful, and product's going to be like, we want to get out the door. So what do we have to do? And there's this kind of synergy that has to happen with all these things. There's going to be push and pull. And so a lot of the advice I'm hopefully going to give you today will help balance these relationships out, because it is about balance. So I guess let's just jump in. I would suggest that a design system might be better if you design it yourself. Leverage a bootstrap as your influence. Look at material design as something as to base your designs off of. But there, for developers, what you maybe don't know about the background of those things is those are code. I can get code. I can download code, put it into my system, and it saves me a lot of headache because I don't have to write that code. And it's wonderful. I love it. But there's a drawback to that. I'm now introducing into my application, my business, someone else's code. It's an open source tool. There's tons of people that are working on it and maintaining it, and that's wonderful. I love that. But at times, as the application grows and changes, I have this new dependency that I'm relying on. And so if I am building a button on my own, I have full control. No matter where the company goes and what changes it wants to make, I can evolve it very easily. if I'm basing everything on Bootstrap, I have an opportunity to where they could change something and that goes counter to what I need my application to do. And so there's a friction there. Either I have to go with the flow with Bootstrap, or I'm going to have to step back and make the component on my own in any case. So sometimes, not all the time, sometimes depending on the business, you'll want to build your own because you're saying the application is actually pretty simple right now. It's a couple form fields, it's a couple buttons, it's a couple colors, and that's it. And that design system is easy for me to maintain as a developer. If your application is big, tons of tables, I hate tables. Use a design system. They're great. They're horrible. I hate building them. So use a system for something like that. It solves so much. Like we have accessibility that was mentioned. You get that stuff with these systems. You don't have to build them from scratch. I appreciate that. But sometimes that it's easier, it's better, it's nuanced, but sometimes it is better. But I would say at the bare minimum, look at those tools as your reference point. Hey, what are they doing? What are they calling it? What's some of the vernacular they're using? Use that and build that into your system. Now, we have at our company concepts of lots of just-in-time stuff because you're going fast. So you're just-in-time designs. You're building what is necessary for the moment. Now, that might look like something kind of like this that you can't totally see because it's tiny, but I'll tell you what you're looking at. We have some greens, and we only have a couple shades of red. We have this gradient of whites to black, and you can't tell this, but if you were to look at the slides, you would see that some of them are actually not used, but some of them are named. And that naming helps us as developers to know this is actually a black that we are concerned about. That's a gray we don't care about, but it's there for if we ever need it. Our developer in this, or designer in this, knew about a lot of lists that they were going to have to present in the mobile application. So they kind of planned those out and said, hey, these are kind of the patterns we're going to use with that. Here's some of the icons we're going to use. This is all we needed to build the application. We don't need a table. We don't need a calendar. We don't need whatever other systems you can get for free with Bootstrap, which is great. But in our world, we oftentimes don't suggest spending the time there because there's other problems that need to be solved in the time frame. So let's work on this so that we can get our product out the door, hopefully make some money, and then we can go back and refine and evolve and add to and develop the design system even more. And for us as developers, it's less stuff that we have to make, less stuff we have to maintain, less stuff that we have to develop, and that makes all of our lives better. Now, a big piece of this, which is what Samantha had, but what I'm going to show you is a little more scrappy than her beautiful annotations and using a storybook to import some of that information. So if you don't have any of that set up, because Storybook's this whole other app process for developers to manage, you can do it all in Figma. That's okay. A lot of developers are mostly smart, so they'll be able to figure it out. So when you're talking about annotations, we have your design. We also do a lot of mobile heavy stuff. So here's kind of some application screens that we've produced. So annotations can be like describing a flow and saying, hey, when they press this button, there's going to be a decision that needs to be made, and then we're going to go one or two ways depending on the screens that we need to go for. We have references here to other Figma art boards, I think is what they're called. You have references to that I as a dev can go, oh, I need to go to 33.0, and I can go find what I need information about. There's notes here. This one says, pending transactions get red dot. There's a red dot. I now know what that means, and as a developer, I can build whatever component I need in my mobile application to fulfill that need. Don't go light on this. The more you do this, my life is better, your life is better, everything's wonderful. So annotate your designs, explain functionality, do everything you can to communicate to your developers what it is that your intent is. Now, when you're thinking about these components, one thing you need to consider is the state of them. When you're building applications, they have state, they change, you do stuff with them. So you have to think about that. And this is maybe stuff you guys are all really smart, you probably have lots of different experiences, but kind of like if you're brand new, you've never thought about this stuff, you're gonna think about like how buttons interact. That's the stuff that you get with these like bootstrap material. They've already made the decision about how a button's going to react. You don't have to think about it. I, as a developer, don't have to think about it. But so leverage that. If you're not in that place and you're designing something unique for yourself, these are the things you're going to have to consider. Think about interaction, find out if that information on the screen is dynamic, or if it's static, it's not going to change. The image is always going to be the same image. What type of user feedback when they press a button, what's it going to do? You're going to have a little toast message that shows up. Do you need to build that? Do you want to do a little check mark on the screen? Whatever it is, you got to think about the feedback. There's lots of things to consider. So when you're looking at an example, you could just say, hey, developer, we got a pin screen that we need to do. Make that hook up to where they punch in their pin and they can get access to the application. I, as a developer, going to look at this, I can build that. But if you told me that I have to have an interaction state that looks like this, now I know a little bit more about what's going to happen. If there's an error case, I know that it says incorrect pin in red at the top, and that's where it goes. I'm thinking about the state, what's happening with this screen, what's happening with the UI, and it's showing me the flow of that. Now, one thing that, just because the screen's small and we can't show you everything, because I'm not super Figma savvy. Down here, there's four, at the bottom, 4 screens that you see at the top of. Those 4 are actually representative of the device that they're being shown on. What these 4 screens represent is right here in the corner, bottom corner of the screen is a Touch ID, a Face ID, an Android identifier, like whatever type of security, biofeedback security is in place, then they have different icons there. You're describing it. You could annotate and say, hey, do the right thing, but like show the right one depending on the device, or you can just show it to us as developers and we'll know what you mean and we won't guess, like Samantha said, because we will guess a lot. So think about the component states. Now, with that, also consider the state of the data itself and how that exists within the system. You're like, wait, Ryan, are you making us be developers? Yes, you kind of are. You're becoming a developer. You're having to think like a developer. That they don't tell you this in school. When you're going to go do design web apps and mobile apps and stuff, you have to start considering this. Cool, you've made this beautiful screen and the user is going to type in something, their name, and then they're going to go show that name on the next screen. That's great. Well, what if their last name has 50 characters in it? What do you do? How do you display it? Do you make the character smaller? Do you truncate? Do you do a little ... Do you tap on it and it shows more? Like you have to think of these things. And if you don't, a developer is going to make that decision for you and you don't want that. Well, maybe you do. Think about the states. What happens when there's no data? What happens when the user is going to the application for the first time versus they've been using your application for a long time? Does the visuals change? If you're able to communicate that to a developer, we will be very, very happy. So here's an example of this. We have this kind of card design on the main application home screen with a couple buttons. Over here, right next to it, where I as a developer can see it and know, hey, this is what I'm referencing to build. Oh, hey, look at this. There's a normal account. There's a missing child's SSN, no gifting. Here's an expectant child is less than equal to 1 month due date. And the button text changes, 1 button versus 2 button changes, where certain notifications are on the screen with the red dot is indicated. All of those things are, when a developer looks at this, is one, probably going to push back and be like, do we really need all these states? Because it's a lot to build, but maybe that's what the business wants. This is that tug and pull that's happening between product design and development. And I'm gonna, as a developer, gonna say, I don't know, this is probably good enough. And you're gonna say, well, Ryan, as a designer, I've talked with product, and here's a document that is linked to somewhere in your annotations that takes you to where we have all this information written out by me and my product manager. Now, and I'm gonna look at that, I'm gonna push back, but then I'm gonna say, you're right. We're gonna do what the product needs, we're gonna do what the business needs, and we're gonna build that stuff because you presented it to me. I now have no questions and you win. That's the goal, always win. So you want to, when you're building your designs in Figma. You want to make sure that you keep us developers focused on the things that should be developed, because we'll wander. We'll be excited about the new shiny thing on your Figma screens. So you need to find out a way to tell us what you want us to build, and still allow you as designers to tweak and play with and make a change and sleep on it and go look at a website for inspiration and come back and fiddle with the design. So you might want to do stuff like we have, you come up with something better because this is good, but it's not the best. But what we do is we kind of identify, hey, here's a flow of screens that are important to us. And we have this thing up here that tells us what it is and what it means and what's ready. We have this yellow box in the bottom corner. You can't see it, but on the text, it says for review. And I can see as a developer, oh, this is potentially where we're going, but it's not ready for me yet. I'm going to continue to build this. And what's kind of nice about seeing this all in one is I can, as a developer, say, oh, that's an interesting idea. I'm not going to build that now, but I'm going to make sure I don't stop us or make my life horrible and hard by preventing myself from doing something like this. The other thing you probably don't want to do is make a change and change the font size or move something over and not have a developer not know what's happening with the screens, that they're not ready for me. So identify that somehow. I don't know, you could do different pages, you can put them on the same screen, you can do color, you can do notes, you big red text that says, stop, dummy, don't go there. And with all of that, so those are some examples, but let's talk a little bit about, in these kind of final minutes, how we work with developers, because we're weird. We're very weird. You're not weird. We're the weird ones. So you want to keep your relationship with the developer as healthy as you possibly can. And so some of the tricks of the trade that might help you do that is, one, assume that developers are always right. No, assume that we are sometimes right, that we're not complete dummies and don't know what we're talking about. It's a back and forth. I love designers because there's a lot of things I can look at a design and know, oh, that looks bad. But I also don't necessarily know all the nuances and tricks that I can do to make that design look really good. So I'm dependent on you, but I'm going to push back. I'm going to say, did you think about this state? Did you think about that data? What about this screen? What about when a user does this? What are you going to do about that? So listen to us, but then I want you to defend your position. You've thought about this, push back, have good reasoning about why you did what you did. I thought about these colors for this way. Hey, look at this. There's a study that talks about when we do this, our applications in general perform better. And if you're relying on that reasoning, you're relying on this reasoned explanation, developer is going to be like, oh, great, this is awesome. Like, you've thought about it. I trust you. And you're building this rapport. And the more you have a rapport with them, the more you can get away with. And that's wonderful. Now, this is already said, but we're going to say it again. If you don't make the decisions, a developer is going to make a decision for you. Yeah. So make the decision, because we got, like, in my world, we got to go. So if I'm looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, you didn't tell me what this layout is completely going to be. What I will probably do, if I'm really on a time crunch, I'm going to implement and then ask your permission for it. Hey, this is what I did. What do you think? I had this due yesterday. Are we good? And you're going to be like, well, I don't really like it, but it was due yesterday. Let's go with it. So think about these things, these little tips and tricks. Think about them so that when you hand us the Figma file, we will not be guessing. Now, if you're working with wonderful devs, you don't have a lot of timeline. Design and the appearance of things are very important to the product, to the business. Some of these things might not happen, but sometimes the designs are, and some of the nuances of a design interaction are the first things to go. That animation, we're not doing animations. So if it's important for you, so if you care about it, that animation, you have to define it and you got to defend it. So whatever things that you're excited about in your application, whatever thing that you're like, oh man, this is going to get me awards, I'm going to be famous on Dribbble, like whatever it is, define it for us as a developer and make our lives easier so we can implement it, and then you will be successful and famous, because that is the goal of life. No. Last thing if your designs are overflowing with complexity without clarity, developers may think that you don't know what you're doing. I might think that developers might think you're dumb. Developers might think you shouldn't have a job. Like, I very antagonistic, but like that's the worst case scenario. You're going to be working with some people who are going to be like, oh my gosh, I as a developer know this. Why not you with your expertise in design know this? Now, granted, we're all in different places. You work with me, you got a lot of grace, but sometimes you're going to run into people that are going to be challenging you. So do what you can to say, this is a complex design that I'm working with. I need to think about it. I need to reason about it. That's what these, like the bootstrap material world does for you, is it's already been thought about. A bunch of people have thought about it, argued about it, and you get that work for free. Now, if you're building your own or your application doesn't work with that for whatever reason, you're going to have to think about these things, and developers are going to love you when you can actually make complex things simpler for us and for the application, which then translate to the business being successful. So I'm not a genius, even though I'm sure all of you think I am. I spent some time talking with the people I work with at UpTech and making sure like, hey, like I'm a developer, here's my perspective. You're a designer, what's your perspective on this? And kind of going back and forth. So that's where we got a lot of these things. So hopefully that helps you in kind of your journey, wherever it is. Like if you're deep in the professional world, or if you're just starting out, like take these things, hold them out in front of you, and decide if they're important to you. They're important for your business, important for your career. Not all of these things are going to be applicable to where you're at, just like what Samantha showed you. Totally valid, totally real, totally do those things, but you have to make some decisions, and hopefully this stuff helps you make some of those decisions. And last but not least, like let's connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk to you. If you're a bootcamp person, let's talk. I would love to, share some advice and hear like what you're going through. The other thing that I'm pretty passionate about is helping out startups figure out what they need to build and how fast, and what do they need to go to market with. So let's talk about that. If you know somebody who's looking for some consultation or help, I would love to point you in the right direction. If it's not me, I probably know someone that can help you out. So with that being said, thank you so much. I'll do a couple questions, and then we're going to go into demo. We're going to do lots of fun things. Cool. All right, we're how often do you get? I love your notes on notes and annotations, right? Yeah. Super helpful. How often are you working with clients that give you designs, just give you the file and don't explain? Or how often do you get a walkthrough with clients your designs of the design that they give you? Yeah. Versus just the design file and go figure it out. We've done both. Oh, the question is how do I handle, and what's been my experience with my clients, my customers, just handing me design and walking away versus explaining things, like what's that process like? So it's kind of both. I've worked with clients that have their own designers that they come in, and I think some of this, the nuances of the presentation I gave is based on that experience, because that in some of these experiences, the designer doesn't understand development. They've never built a web app. They've built brochures and branding, which are all beautiful, wonderful things that are needed. But there's a nuance to building applications that users have to click and touch and look at and listen to and all of those things. So a lot of the work that we're doing in my world is we have product design and development that are working. So people are coming to us with the idea and maybe the business expertise in their domain. And we're trying to fit in and say, hey, we have a designer for you. They're going to do this. Let's learn from your business expertise and design the right thing. Then we can pass that and work with development. We have product that's in all of those places to understand the business and make sure that we're on the right path. So I haven't had a lot of experience. Like I would be very concerned and we don't normally just do a handoff of designs, there's going to have to be a lot of conversation. And if I look at a design that doesn't have annotations, I'm probably going to freak out and be like, what is this? And I'm, depending on my mood, I might like do a lot of pressure, like, did you think about this? 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 And hopefully they have. And that would just might be stuff that I have to write down. That might be something that I can add to the Figma file. It just kind of depends. But I would say if you are a designer, maybe working with another company, they're giving you designs, like push back, have them annotate the file for you in your company. I think that is very helpful. It's great if it's in Figma. If it's someplace else, that's still good. But the closer you can get it to your designs, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that annotation in the developer handoff. That's very interesting. If like the product is like very complex, like it's related to other part of the products, it's like giving like user flows and journey map along to the design annotation is helpful, or is it just the design annotation to provide something like that?
So you're asking, is it helpful if I have a very big complex application to have annotations? Or
the designers should include like user flows and journey maps along the handoff? Is that something?
Oh, yes. I mean, if you have that, if you have user flows and other documentation that helps out and enhances your Figma designs, yes, the more information you can give us, the better. Maybe a little hint or trick in that is in Figma, copy and paste a link to that resource that relates to the screen that you're looking at, because I'm going to be curious. I'm going to be like, what's this website for? I'm going to click on it and I'm going to see if it's relevant to the information I need. Or when a developer asks you a question, you'd be like, we've already talked about it. It's in that document right in this link that's on the Figma file. And I'm going to feel dumb because I had to ask a question that was right in front of me. So the more information you can kind of put out there, the better. The one caveat to that is you don't want to over document. Like you don't want to have like Google Docs of just tons of information that I am not going to spend the time to read. So you got to weigh those annotations with like detailed brevity. Yeah.
Okay, so and then in the Zoom, one of them asked, would you mind going back to the screen that said consider the states of your components?
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to see, but we'll do that at the end of the activity. Okay. And then one of the questions was, would it be important to understand how front-end development works, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, to work better with developers?
Yes, yes. The more you can know about the development process, the more effective you're going to be at your job. You have, like, when I talked about like being able to reason, or like all these things, thinking about the states of the component is relevant to if you know how the front end experience of developing it is. That's that complexity issue. You could draw a bunch of stuff on the screen. You're like, oh man, this is the most beautiful piece of work I've ever produced. But if it's hard to build, it's not going to get built. And that doesn't help anybody. Like you're going to be bummed as a designer. I'm going to be frustrated as a developer. The business is going to be upset because they've already approved and shown to investors or shown to people how beautiful the app is going to look. And the reality is it's not going to look as good because we can't do any of that work. So if you can do any learning up front, if you can go to a boot camp like Samantha did, like even better, like you're going to be engrossed. It doesn't mean you have to do it on a day-to-day, but if you're able to speak the language of the developer, you're going to be very effective at your job.
I had a question regarding actually.
Yeah.
At what point though does the designer, I mean, like it's important to know CSS, HTML, JavaScript, React frameworks, but so where's the line drawn to where the designer pretty much just gets in the way of the developer doing that kind of stuff? So for example, like I can do a token or a button,
yeah,
but again, what if they've already, have an existing, React component, and then you're building into with your own custom CSS.
Sure.
So it's like, and you said earlier, you're like, well, it's better to make my own custom code because of code drop.
Yeah.
So it's like, in terms of, kind of summarize.
Yeah.
So out there, is it faster to implement with the custom code or with using an existing framework like React. Moving
Is it faster to develop with a framework or develop your own code?
versus because you're saying about
Yeah.
Code Rock earlier.
The answer is yes. Like it depends. Like if you're a new designer coming into an existing company that has already built an application, you're going to have to follow whatever rules that they've already set up. You're going to have to deal with code that already exists or doesn't exist. You're going to have to, if they already are using Bootstrap, you're going to have to probably use Bootstrap. If they're not using Bootstrap and they're building their own components, you might have a fight on your hand to convince them to use something like Bootstrap. So it does depend. I find that if you're developing only what you need, like you're designing only what you need, sometimes it could be faster to do it on your own. But I think that depends. Like I think I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. I have enough experience to know what will work quickly and what will be challenging to make. And I'll be like, hey, that's challenging to make. Hey, did you ever look at this thing in Bootstrap? Can we use that? And we'll maybe bring that one thing in, and that thing becomes an isolated code writable thing, but at least it's that one thing and it's not the entire system.
I asked
So
that
it
question
depends.
because I'm in the position where it's kind of a hybrid,
Yeah,
where we have a design system that uses React, MUI,
Yeah.
and material design UI, but then we're also building custom components because we're building different types of products that
Yeah.
don't necessarily fit the
Right.
standard use case.
yeah. It's always challenging, and there's not a hard and fast rule. I think the more you can standardize, I think the better. If you're like, hey, in this scenario is when we build the new stuff. In all other scenarios, we use the existing material design. Like you make those rules, define them. They're gonna change because new people are gonna come in and have opinions, or technology is gonna change. But if you start trying defining the boxes, the components, like this is a really big Lego box, material, not material. And then within those atomic things start coming into play.
All right, we're going a bit over time, but
Okay.
I wanted to make sure James's question got answered because he asked it in the chat.
Yeah.
He said, in what scenario do developers change the design, and what's your take on Pixel Perfect?
Ooh, okay. What scenario do we change designs, and what scenario, or what's my opinion on Pixel Perfect? Okay. Pixel Perfect it's nuanced. I would say it depends on where the business is at. If the business is just trying to get out the door because they're running out of money, Pixel Perfect is not a concern of mine. Functionality is, and relatively good user experience and simple communication between what the application is and what problem it's solving. But if you got the time, you've got the money, I love making beautiful things. Like I feel better. It's kind of weird. You guys design the stuff and I sit there and I just make the code do the thing that you designed. And I feel like, oh man, look at me. Look at what I built. It's like, proxy. I don't know. I have no words for that. So Pixel Perfect, it kind of depends again, like everything in life, but I would be leaning towards, it's not a huge deal for me. That's like a later thing in the business life cycle. What was the first part of that question? I forgot again.
In what scenario do developers change the design?
Usually it's when it's complex and I feel like developers don't feel like you know what you're doing and it's hard to work with you, our relationship isn't healthy, then I'm gonna just make a decision because that's easier for me to do and ask for forgiveness later than it is for me to like go to you, fight with you, to tell you, hey, like you're not considering when the last name is Giant or something. I think that's probably one. I think that's maybe an extreme edge case. In my world, with the people I work with, we're all pretty good and we have good, healthy relationships. So it's a back and forth. And so it's kind of rare that we're changing things without the designer knowing, because it's like, hey, I ran into this issue. This is what I'm thinking I'm doing. Maybe I'll annotate the Figma design, or maybe take a screenshot and draw some red arrows on it or something. And it's really, for us, it's an approval process. Hey, Ryan, actually, that's fine. Go for it. Or, hey, Ryan, that is a problem. You need to think about this or that. So it can happen. Ideally, it doesn't happen. But if I instill fear in you that it will happen, then maybe things will be better for everybody.
Alrighty.
Cool.
It happens when there simply isn't time.
Oh, yes.
When you build
Yeah,
something that developers like
So the clock is ticking and I have to build something and what you made is not possible, so I'm gonna have to make something else and apologize to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So maybe you can fix it later.
Yeah.
If there's a deadline and you build something impossible,
Yeah.
so that's how that happens.
Yeah. Like I'm working on a client right now. They're in Switzerland right now at a conference. Literally a hard deadline. If stuff's not done, they can't present it to the conference goers. So we had to make decisions and say, yeah, that's nice, but the chances of someone hitting that or experiencing that's pretty low right now. Like, we'll just throw that out the door right now, and maybe we'll prioritize it later. So we make those decisions. Time is a big one. Freaking time. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Run this through the wheel one more time. That was so good. You know how funny you are?
So just so everyone online knows, we're going to be doing a demo with Sam. So we're going to get that set up right now. Okay.
Right here.
Yes.
So convenient.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna dive into the wonderful chaotic world of building some stuff, because Figma came out with some crazy tools. I'm thinking about this. I was just gonna show how I'm doing it, and they can follow along however they want to follow along. This is sort of half demo time, half do it yourself time. If you want to practice some of these cool tricks, then maybe you can open Figma yourself and just maybe try some of these tricks out, because there's some funky things. So at the latest config conference, Figma released some like really super swaggin' features that I now use for a lot of the components that I've built. These are just examples. I was hoping to maybe rebuild some of these in front of you and see how we can sort of snap them together. And then explain what will sort of become the component props, which if you can define those, developers will be super happy with you. Which one do we want to build? I was gonna say for an activity, you can dig into some of the UI kits or think about a component like a modal or a table cell or any of this stuff. So this is my crazy button component. I'm just gonna pull one out. Oh, that was not what I wanted to do at all. So here's a button. We love buttons. So here, can I increase the UI something? I think that I can. Wow, look at that. Oh, that's a lot of steps. Command Option Shift equals. Oh, look at that. So now you can see the controls. That's way better. Okay. So here's the master component. Here's this panel area. This is the most fun area. So they now have a bunch of options for stuff you can do that they didn't have before. We have text properties, we have Boolean properties, and we have variant properties. And they're all in here, and developers understand them, and they're super fun. So here we have show text, show not text. Oh God, come back. Okay, button text is a good one. This is a text property. So here, see how this is highlighted? I can go like this and just change it right in here. Show this is, and I defined all these properties myself. Show left icon, show right icon, drop down, style, we talked about that, solid, outline, the ghost button. The ghost button is just like this. States are really super important. States are hard to show in a flat design. They're easier in a prototype, but you'll see them. Active state when something is being interacted with. Hover. I don't like the ghost button. I want to use the solid button. State hover, state disabled, state focus. That's a screen reader thing. You're tabbing around the page. We have our different colors. We have our focus primary colors. But I can do all these things because I have set it up in here this way. And with that, and with these inputs, we can make things like these modals. So just scream out which type of component you like best. Do you like the cells, the buttons, the modals, the inputs? Oh, we want to do inputs. Oh, spooky. Only heard one vote so far. Inputs winning. Inputs winning. Inputs are scary, guys. Inputs are too scary. I've decided. Okay, well, we want to do modal. Modals are more fun. We have a lot to play with in here. Okay. So modal is assuming we already have a button. I feel like everyone does buttons. That's the only reason why I didn't want to do that. Okay, so we're going to rebuild this modal, and we're going to show the fun things that we can do in there. Who has Figma open? Who's trying to follow along right now? There should be more hands up right now. Okay, we're starting at a blank area of the canvas. I'm going to my assets panel. Do I want to? I was gonna. I could if you want to, but I don't know how much value you're gonna get out of just being the same page. Should I can put it in the chat. Actually, let's do that. Let's be kind. Anyone with a link can view, copy link. And this is my whole page. How do I do that? Here it is. Should be in the Figma chat. Oh, that's wrong. You have it. You know where to put it.
I'm going to listen to the meetup page of your comments if you guys want to follow along on your laptop.
Cool. So in this little mini UI world that I've created here with a handful of very disjointed random things, we're going to build a really super cool modal. I am gonna pull out this little button guy because I know I want my modal to have buttons. I know I want it to have a cancel button next to it. So I want these guys here. What else goes in a modal? For what? That's how I honest to God do text. These are really cool text styles that I defined with the help of developers down here too. I originally had them to be more human language because I like that and developers speak like robots. But we have our headings, we have our text, body, caption, small body, body 16. Wait, do I not have it updated? That's fine. Just kidding. Scrap everything I just said. Okay. I'm putting a random block of text. Random block of body text as a placeholder. Cool. What else can go in a modal? An icon. That's so cool. What type of icon? We get to come up with any icon we want right now as a placeholder. I use the elephant. What should we use? I heard envelope. We have font awesome. We love font awesome. Anyone use font awesome in here?
I didn't know we did that.
That's nuts, right? Yeah, if you don't know what font awesome is, it's awesome. Thanks. It's basically it's a font, so it's a text, so you can upload it as a text style in here. In fact, if we're getting fancy, we can create a text style right now, pretending actually I'm just going to make my life easier. I'm going to turn this off because that's cheating. If I do it that way, I have to start from scratch, you guys. I have the Font Awesome Pro installed on my computer. And if I want to make size 18 style solid Font Awesome 6 Pro a text style, I can create a style called icons. And now anytime I type anything, watch this, shout out another random thing. Look, pie, I typed in pie. No dice, try again. That's awesome. We have an audience here. Okay, that one worked. Okay, so basically anything that's in the Font Awesome 6 library, you can type in. Font Awesome 6 is cool. But you can have any icon ever, and I recommend that. It does cost money, but it's worth it. So, okay. Do we need a header in our modal? Maybe, possibly? Yes. Do you think the header should maybe look a little bit different than the body text? What do we think? How much different? What should we do instead? Bigger? What about weight? Is this fit? I heard that and I was like, wait, for what? We fixed it. Anything else we want to add to our cool modal? Close button. So helpful. Wouldn't it be great if we already had a button component? Wait, we do. So watch watch this magic I'm about to do right now. I'm about to make a close button out of a button. Ghost button. I'm going to say turn off the text because I don't want the text. I want this to be an icon button. And see, there's already an icon prop down here that I made. And in Font Awesome, the close button is called times. Took me too long to figure that one out. We have a close button. Boom. Okay. Close button, header, icon, body text, buttons. Are we comfortable with the things in our modal right now? We want to add any other fun things? We can add them later.
By the way.
These are atoms, by the way. Atom, 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 atom. We have a jumble of atoms. We're about to do cool things. Oh, that comes later, but I'm so glad you asked. Okay. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna get wild. I'm gonna stack our buttons here. So who likes auto layout? I love auto layout. Oh, so fun. Guess who else likes auto layout? Developers. You know why? Because it's laid out the way that they would do the grids. Which one of the problems that people don't like about auto layout is that everything is like one line and not a grid. But like that's how Flexbox works. You don't know what Flexbox is? Look at that poster behind you. Auto layout is very similar to Flexbox. So if you love auto layout, your developers will love you, which is what we want because we want them to listen to us. So what I just did, I realized I just used a shortcut. I selected these two buttons and I decided I want to stack them for this modal. So I highlighted these two things I want to look at our layers panel. And I hit Shift A. Look at that. We have an auto layout frame. This is too much space. This is the spacing area. I want these to be 10 apart. I also want these to be full width buttons. This is an atom I've already made, so it's getting a little confusing. Oh, I didn't make a component for that. That's fine. Fill container. I might have ruined everything. Look at that. Okay. So the bottom one, we always want it to say something like cancel. Can we think of something funnier than cancel? What's the opposite of nah? Okay, so here's our modal buttons. The fun thing is for placeholders in your Figma document that a user will never see, you can write dumb things like this and your developer will laugh. So we want to name our layers. I know people don't tell you, that people say that you don't really have to. I like to because it's fun and helps keep your file organized. So this is a new frame. This is an auto layout frame with 2 buttons in it. I'm calling it buttons down here. So this is one auto layout. Now we probably want to stack these. I want to put this next to this. So I'm going to highlight these 2 things. I'm going to put them in an auto layout. I'm going to call this header. I don't like the way that this is shaped. So I'm going to go hug. Have we played with these hug, fill, fixed? Yeah. Okay. I don't want that to be fixed with. I want that to be fill. And I want these to be 20 apart. Well, that's too much. No, that's fine. And I want this. Okay. So this is our header. Oh, wait, our close button needs to be in here. Does it? How do I get this in here? It's too big. Can make this, and we're bringing it to the front because I lost them. There it is. Okay, and that's too big. I don't like that that's so big. Okay, fix it. This should be fill. This should be hug. This should be great. Gucci. Okay, header. Here's our random block of text. That is the middle part. So we have this, we have this, we have this, and we're gonna stack them. I actually don't like the size of this. I'm gonna make this bigger because our buttons are so big. No, that's smaller. This is 22. This is 22. Great. Header. So now I'm gonna select this and this and this, and we're gonna Shift A again. So now we have this ugly situation happening. We want them over here. And I want this to be hug. Whose fault is this? I want this to be fill because I want this to resize based on the size of this. I want all these things to be filling based on the resize of this. And I want them to be a reasonable amount of width apart. How's this look? Good or bad? You can say bad. It looks bad. We are putting some padding in here. Heads up, if you like to make developers happy, use the box model in your language, such as this is called padding. We have some padding now. It doesn't look as bad. Actually, I changed my mind. I don't like how this close button looks. I want this to be floated. So now this is a new Figma feature up here. This is absolute position, which is another development feature. I'm going to toggle this on because I want to make this higher up in my modal, but I can't really see this yet. So I'm up. There we go. Now it's stuck to the top of the, I want this out of here. I want this to be here and here. Perfect. Stuck in the corner. Okay, I'm going to rename this modal. I want this to be hug content. Fill content. Okay. We want a border. We want a shadow. That was your idea. Yeah. Border radius or sharp? What do we think? We want a border radius of what? Does that look good? It's a little dark. We like this, or do we want it to be thicker? Oh, that's a big boy. What about, we want this to be filled too, right? Because if it wasn't, sometimes you have what you think is a white fill, and then you'll like put this behind it, and you're like, oh no. So that's why you need to have a fill. Right now we're doing a white fill. Do we like this blue or do we want to come up with a more fun color than this?
Fun color.
Oh, wow. What color? Tell me to stop. Pink. I'm hearing pink. We have to, what's wrong with this? Pop quiz. What's wrong with this? Accessibility really bad. We're getting yelled at. If you want to be really certain, you can use the cool plugin, which it doesn't really work on anything, but I'm going to make this a white square just so we can use the plugin really quickly. Please stop me if I'm going over time. 4 minutes. Oh shoot. Okay. Now plugins are important though. Let's do preferences, plugins. I can't find my plug. Anyway, I can't find the plugin, but use a plugin and make sure your colors are accessible. Accessible colors are really important. Okay, we're making this color so we can see it. Okay, so this is our component now. I'm gonna Command Option K. Wow, look at that, it's a master component. So over here, we now have the ability to do some crazy things for our properties here. So the first thing we want to do is make this block of text customizable. So see this content thing here? Content, look at this. Create component property. I'm going to call this body text. So now I can create this property here and it exists here. So if I made an instance of this, boom, done. What happens if we resize this? Does it resize? Oh, yes, it does. We want to leave that there. We want to do the same thing with our header text. Header, create property, header text. And we have Boolean properties, which we can see layer, pass through, create a layer property. So if you want to hide and show certain things like this icon, show icon, we can also, because we're using Font Awesome, make a text property for the same thing. So the type of icon right now is envelope. So in here, we can go in here and say the icon is being show, hide, show, hide, show, hide. So cool. Other ideas. Check it out. Look at that. And we can put it right here. This is actually the ugliest border in the world. So I'm changing it right now. It should be dotted, he says. Oh, we're listening to the developer today. Look at that. Made it so much better. That's how it is now. We're living with our mistakes. 10:59. Okay. So if you get crazier with the components that you do, as you can see, I've made the different sizes. So that's how I made this one. But I can choose the different sizes in here. But if I want to resize it, I can do that. And the one that we built in here has the showing the close button and our text and our buttons. If we wanted to make these button text configurable within this thing, we can do that. And as you can see in here, what do we got? This is a master component made out of other components. Parent component. This is atomic design built directly into here. So we can select this component. We can do fun things with it. We can change the instance of this. This is one component inside of another component. And with that, you can build some crazy kits, such as this table thing that's here. This is just one example, but the cell is a component. The column is a component. The top controls are a component. The search bar is a component. This button is a component. This opens into this. This is atomic design on display. By the way, if you want to find fun annotations, I exclusively use a brightly colored Comic Sans because that's how I know that it's commentary. That was a demo and we're quickly approaching time. Does anyone want to see anything else? Questions about how I did these properties? Are we out of time?
We're at 8 o'clock.
If you're tired of me, you can leave, but also if you want to see me build more stuff, I can build more stuff. But this is how to build one thing. You can see we have here are the properties that we came up with in here. You can do the same thing with your buttons, with your cells, with your inputs. The inputs get a little bit crazy, showing how we did some of these. State is really important. Error state, see, and then the error message is its own text. Something wrong, big, sad. Read only, we have a read only, hover, focus, da 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 da.
How do you stay on top of like all the Figma updates and then choose what to implement into the design space?
Yeah, so Figma comes out with new features all the time that are really helpful. The variants when they came out with it a year or two ago was huge. Most of them are not ever breaking changes. They're just sort of additive changes that you can throw on top. You can completely choose to ignore them and not use them if you have a massive company that doesn't like new things. But if it's just you and you have a lot of power to explore, just follow a lot of Figma pages and go to the conferences and see what new things they're advertising and sort of try them out in your own world. I tend to, when I have free time, just build hella my own components completely outside of my company's design kit. And if I liked how it worked, then I sort of restructure the components that we've used everywhere using the new thing.
So
Yes.
why create different size modals if they're resizable?
Good question, because our kit is based on Bootstrap, and because of that, they have out of the box different sized things. So when I'm looking at this, I, as a designer, am like, I can make it whatever size I want. The developer says, no, we can't. We have 3. So because of that, he's nodding, so we know it's true. So for Bootstrap, they have defined sizes. I'm going to butcher it if I try to tell you what they are, but they have small, medium, extra large. They also have different behaviors or different devices for, sometimes they're based on the screen size. So sometimes the largest, the XL modal, is like 80% view width, view height. So that's a whole other thing that you have to design around. But the more that you can define with labels too in here, sizes, I should have had names by this. I do have in my other document. Developers will be happy. Yay. Any other questions? Want to see anything else?
Originally, we were going to have you guys find a UI kit, kind of stylize it as your own, put in our own components, but of course, we just had so much valuable content that you can't squeeze it in an hour and a half, but.
Did anyone build a little thing on their own screen? A fun little, oh, you still have time. You can build a fun modal by yourself. We talked about fun, awesome. Yes.
How can we find you like connect with you?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked. You can look me up on LinkedIn and bother me, Samantha Vivonia. I should be on the thing, or you can bother me after the meeting right now and I'll give it to you right there. I think my link is on the event. Should be.
Sounds good.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Well, that basically wraps this up. Want to show our online audience our in person because they've just been watching the screens and whatnot, but that's everyone here. Cool. Basically it. I have nothing else. Figma sent me a stupid amount of stickers, so please.
You want to turn your volume on?
It's muted. Unmuted now.
Oh, it's
free